Now, first of all, when we are discussing about the cities, what is a city? How can you call this particular place as a city? So, as we know that we have a specifications for everything. For everything we have characteristics. So, for boys we have certain features. For girls we have certain features. For every individual we have certain facial features which differentiate from one person to the other person. Every item has certain characteristics. Every fruit has its own characteristics. In the same way, if any place to be called as a city, it should have certain characteristics. So now we shall identify the characteristics of the city. Let us see here the characteristics of the city. So when we talk about the characteristics of the city, as we all know, in the ancient period as well as in the modern period, when we talk about the growth of human settlements, I think you all know what is a human settlement. The place where the human beings initially got settled. The settlements later turned into towns, and from towns they turned into cities. So even today, the world famous settlements are nearby to the water bodies or rivers and lakes. Example I would like to give, Ur and Nippur in the western countries, Mohenjo-daro in Indian subcontinent. So this Ur, Nippur, Mohenjo-daro, all are river valleys only. All prove for us that the modern cities are nothing but the culmination of certain new activities into the existing cities or into the existing villages. Let us put it as villages which got advanced, then got named as cities. So what are that were added to villages to become a city? Let us find out them. First of all, a city is a place where you have certain people accessing political power in their hands. A city is a place where you have certain people accessing the political power in their hands. That is the first major criteria. Second one, they have the administrative network with them. They would like to have the administrative network with them. Third one, trade, religion. They used to have from that particular city trade relations with the other countries, with the other corners of the same country. So that's how this city will be very famous with the connectivity of trade links. And then we have religion, the religious aspects, religious worship places, religious priests, all these people staying in the city. And it also consists of very large population as a common feature of a city. Industries, opportunities, businessmen, small and large, all these people buckled up together is called a city. So in simple words, we can say that a city is nothing but a village which used to be at the river valleys. After a long period of time, with the accommodation of more number of people and with the getting the people involved into the political power, having the administrative network, able to run the administration, then moving on to the trade links, establishing the trade links with the other places, religion, having the religious worship places, religious gurus staying there, and last but not the least, growth in the categories of industries, in the category of providing employment opportunities for the people from the nearby places. These all together can be called as a modern world called urbanization. In the modern world, we call a city is nothing but a place which got urbanized from a village. A village which got urbanized will be termed as a city. So, in order to understand the history of urbanization, we need to focus or do a case study on one of the best cities in the world. Then you can understand how did the process of industrialization got developed, or how was the process of industrialization or urbanization initiated first, and how did it reach to the long journey was found today. Now, what is the busiest city in the world? I think you all know. the most happening city, the busiest city is London. Even during the 19th century or present day also, the most busiest place or the most highly advanced city is London, and the next most busiest city or highly advanced city, most commercial activities going on city in the Indian subcontinent is Mumbai. So London and Mumbai would be our case study aspects to understand the history of urbanization which happened in the past 200 years. Now we shall discuss about industrialization and how did the process of industrialization got influencing one of the fastest growth cities during that century, even today also, London. So as we all know, the process of getting industrialization has been involved from the process of industrial revolution. Industrial revolution is a change from handmade goods or the man-made goods to a place where the machine does everything. So from handmade goods to machine-made goods, how the transformation got changed and how did London experience this one? Though London has been one of the cities which got erupted up at the side of or the valley of river Thames, then if you look at the map of London growth from 17th century ending, it starts growing on as a small circle to a very larger circle. So how it got growth like that? How did the London was able to attract people from like that? Some of the historians remark this one in a different way. Let us see here. Most of the western cities are largely rural. Then why do we call them as cities? We never call them as cities. Today we are calling them as cities, but previously they were all rural areas. And it was only an exemption to Leeds and the Manchester regions where you have the growth of cities, where you have seen the establishment of some kind of industries, some kind of recruitment for the people, some kind of opportunities available for the people. That is the reason why these places like Leeds and Manchester were being the industrial places or the business places from where the business can be done. So, as if you look at the statistics of the growth of the cities, most of the people around London, let us take the statistics of London here. But before going to London, we shall find out what happened in Leeds and the Manchester. The Leeds and the Manchester were the cities where in 1851, in the year 1851, 3/4 of the people migrated from rural areas to the region of the Manchester on a hope, on a dream to come here and lead a better life when compared to staying in the rural areas. So that's how the initial stage of migration started towards the city of Manchester. Now, sir, in Manchester we have some industries because in the previous lesson also we have seen the competition from the local trade. Britain people always used to encourage their own products. They used to put extra import duties on the Indian products. So that's what we heard about Manchester, it's fine. Then when it comes to London, the concept is different because in London you don't have any large factories which provide opportunities for you, because it is rightly remarked by Stedman Jones that London is a city of clerks, shopkeepers, small merchants, small masters, small sellers, beggars. It's a place where you find all small things available. It is not a city where you have large industries established. So you can dream and come here on a job or an opportunity or to survive in a better place. So here Stedman Jones' point of view is that when we talk about any other city's growth in the world, the process of urbanization or industrialization was always marked with a growth of a huge industry or an establishment of a huge industry. But in London, the case was different, where the city was always branded with the city of clerks, the city of shopkeepers, the city of small petty workers, the city of small skilled artisans. So how can this city attract the people from various corners? Let us look at the statistics, how the city got attracted towards itself. In 1750, when the statistics were taken, 1 out of every 9 members in the society of England and Wales Islands you love to be in the city of London, the city of colossal city, the city of London. If you look at the statistics still further, in 18th century, prior to this in 1750 as we discussed, the population was around 6,75,000, but by the time it came to 1810, it reached to 1 million, and within a span of 70 years, the population went on up to 4-fold increase, that is nearly 4 times 4 million was the population. From 1 million to 4 million, the population has increased. It was a rapid change or attraction of the people. Then the fundamental question of doubt arises here. Sir, you actually expressed your view that we don't have any large scale industries. All are small. The city of clerks, shopkeepers, small masters, street sellers and beggars. So how can this city attract so much huge number of people? We were talking about the situation in the 19th century where a million population was a population of a country. So how can that much population got 4 times 4-folded extension to a 4 million? What attracted the people towards London? A serious study was made on this. So it's not that something which attracted towards London. The same industrialization attracted people towards London. But the case is different here. Only thing is large factories or industries were not established. Then what were established? We have 5 major industries, the core industries to attract people to London. The 5 major core industries are the cloth industry, fine cloth, cotton cloth, fabric cloth has been initiated from London factories. Then we have the footwear industries coming forward. The famous, world famous footwear industries were located in London. Then we have the wood, the furniture industries taking up ahead. Then we have the different metals and then the engineering products. After all these things, it is not left out. We also have the precision. What is a precision? A precision is a combination of different goods. Again in precision, we have the other small industries coming up like surgical industry, then the surgical machinery, whatever you need for making surgeries, for the medical equipment, then the different objects, whatever you need that are being produced in London, then the precious metals, what are available during that time in the market like gold, diamond and all, were also being exposed to the market from London. And along with this, with the World War I, the London industrialist people started to manufacture motor cars and electric goods by 1914. So that's how they started to make a very large market. That's the reason why people out of every 9, 1 person used to wish to dream to be in London, because you have a galore of opportunities. The opportunities are not restricted only to one factory, one industry, one particular categories of industries. You have n number of industries in future where you have a growth, you have a chance. If not, you can be a part of any of these sectors. You can be a clerk, you can be a shopkeeper, you can be a small master of your item, you can be a street seller. If not, you can be a beggar, a forced labor. But you have the industries where large like cloth, footwear, wood furniture, metal, engineering, possession coming under surgical objects and also the objectical industry. Then we have the precious metals like gold and diamonds. So all these, by 1914 they were also incapable of making motor cars and electrical goods. So all this made them to realize that in London, if we go there, we can find one or the other job, one or the other opportunity for us to survive. That is the reason why people choose London to be their final destination from late 19th century. That's how the population got tremendously into fourfold times increased. Now we shall discuss about the crime. Why we have to discuss about crime? Actually, we are discussing about the marginal groups which established in the city of London. As the population has been growing to fourfold times from 1810 to 1870, when we take the statistics, it became from 1 million to 4 million, nearly fourfold times it has been increased. That's what we have discussed in the previous part of the lesson. So as the time passed on, with the population has increased, the crime also started to increase in a very larger scale. And the astonishing fact is that in 1870s, when the research was made, nearly 20,000 criminals were found in London. 20,000 literally. The police were really worried of what has to be done to maintain the law and order. Because if you have 20,000 criminals moving around here and there, every corner of the city would be in trouble. So how to control the law and order was a very big and difficult task for the police of that time. So the book written by Henry Mayhew wrote the book that studying what are the factors that really made the people to turn towards criminals. Why the people in London were interested to become criminals, because 20,000 is not a small number. 20,000 is a large number. So what are the factors that are motivating the people to turn into these criminal activities, illegal activities? Then he had made a study and he had released a volume of series of books on the attitude of the criminals and the problems of the criminals, and establishing the fact that in London you have criminals because they belong to the poor category people, underprivileged category people. The people, those who are not able to get access to any kind of jobs, those who will not able to get any kind of possibility of getting any jobs or education, these people only will try to do criminal attitudes or criminal activities, because there is no other alternative for them to do. The best possible alternative is to do these illegal activities and earn some kind of income for them. Yes, of course, there are some negative points. From the criminal's point of view, turning to be a criminal is not an easy point. There are also skilled people in this criminals also, who can do large number of misplacing some things or doing the thefts and all these things. Now moving on, so as a precautionary step, the situation of London was really an alarming one, because we need to take a call immediately, because 20,000 criminals roaming on freely, openly, it's not an easy task. It has to be addressed, it has to be questioned clearly. So the police were really worried about the law and order. So they were trying to find out what are the possible solutions for this one. They started to understand what are the best thing that has to be done. As the books written by Henry Mayhew brought into light that most of the people who are in the criminal attitudes or criminal activities were really suffering from lack of jobs. They were not given any access to any kind of jobs. And also in order to place discipline in the city, the polices were firm in their action. So the discipline, in order to replace discipline in the city, high penalties were imposed for the crimes. In order to get the discipline, high penalties were imposed for the crimes, the criminal activities, so that people would not restore them to go towards the criminal attitudes, because you need to pay heavy amounts as compensation amount. It's a crime amount. So then most of the people have come down, and if you don't do crime, what should I do? So whoever is there, the deserving poor people who needs jobs were given jobs by the government. Whoever needs jobs, the possibility of getting a jobs, but because of their poorness, they were not given any jobs. Those people were given the job opportunities. And not only this, during that time, one more growing scenario was that women were taken into the factories to work in the newly coming up factories, where women started to move themselves into the factories and started to earn. But it was a very short-lived dream. From most of the women who got employed into the factories were replaced because of the technological advancements which brought machines into the factories, So the number of workers required for the factories have come down. And we also, when women were thrown out of the factories, women started to search other possible opportunities for them. So most of the women got themselves changed into the domestic sector, where women were employed as domestic maids or servants for a very larger section of population. Out of the entire women who were thrown out of the jobs because of the technological advancements which have come, 1/4 of them got employed themselves into the domestic servants or domestic work activities. And later, in order to compensate their income, because as a domestic maid or servant, they get very less amount of income for them. So they started to give their house for lodging and rent to earn some income. They started to do tailoring. They started to do washing of the clothes or making of the matchboxes. All these things were made in order to compensate their income. But as the time passed on, they were entering into the early part of the 20th century. The industrial progress started to boom up again because of the World War I. Again, the wartime industries gave again a boom for the women to come back to factories. So this brought back again women to factories. So now women are back to the factories. And later, Andrew Mirans writes in his book, he was actually a clergy who has studied the situation and wrote that The Bitter Cry of Outcast London, a book which was released in 1880s, which shows for us that the situations are not as easy as it was told. And he also gives an example saying that why did the people prefer to go for doing criminal activities rather than going and working hard in any factory or in any industry if they get a job? Because it was very easy for a 7-year-old child to get 10 shillings and 6 pennies per week. If he is educated, if he works for an industry, he has to make nearly 56 batches of matchboxes to earn this one in a week. Instead of that, stealing 10 shillings is an easy task for him. It is a one-day activity which can make him to survive for 1 week. Where 1 week you do hard work, you may get only this much of amount. That's how the people started always to think in the other way to earn. So maybe that is also one of the reason which made a possibility of getting easy money for them without doing much hard work. And then only in Education Act, Free Education Compulsory Act was passed in 1870, which brought most of the people into the primary schools. And then we have the factories restriction of children into work in 1902, where this also brought the children away from the factories and close to the schools. That's how the marginal groups started to emerge, and then finally the children are into the schools. Now we shall move to the discussion of establishing the housing. How did the housing of London happen? The housing of London was actually not well constructed before the industrialization. With the industrialization, with the pouring of people into the city because of the industrial growth, maybe not with the larger scale industries, but because of the small scale industries, because of the wide opportunities available for the people. Now, people found it very difficult for them to find houses there, and they were of very high rents and all these things. So the owner of the house or the owner of the factories used to prefer to give for the employees, workers, the tenements or the tenements. You heard it right, it's not tenants, it is tenements. Tenements is nothing but a place or an apartment where it was being overcrowded with the population, overcrowded with the people. So it's not a separate individual house given to the people who work in the factories or industries. It is a apartment with small rooms allotted for more number of workers working in that place, which was naturally unhygiene and unhealthy atmosphere prevails there. So in these all are a symbol of existence of poverty. It is not a new reason or a new logic to understand that in London we have poverty. In most of the villages we have poverty, That's the reason why people are moving from the villages to cities. So in the cities, we have the possibility of eliminating poverty, but still in cities also we have existence of poverty. That is a remarkable feature what we have to remember here. In 1887, Charles Booth he himself conducted a survey. He is an industrialist person who himself initiated the process to conduct a survey, and in this survey he told that it is nearly 1 million people are there who are lack of houses in the city, and it need to be constructed houses for them, and the average life expectancy of a person from the below middle class families has been dropped down severely from 55 years to 29 years, which was a serious concern during that time, because it was age of 55 years which was a good age to survive from the middle class community. I mean, like life expectancy period I am talking. It's not saying that only they have to live for 55 years of age. Their life expectancy was up to 55 years. But because of this industrialization, because of these people working for overtime and all, that has been dropped down for 29 years. And it also shows that most of the people would die at workhouses or in the hospitals where there were no proper conditions available. And he clearly concluded saying that we need minimum 4 lakh houses for the poor people to be there. So this was made the survey which was revealed to all the people. The government started to take actions on this one. Government initiated the process of building the mass houses. So there are again certain problems in this one. Once the mass houses are built and given in some areas, they were able to find certain problems like the vast mass one-room houses were proved to be unhealthy. That is the first problem which has been identified. The second problem is the fire hazards may happen in the mass one-room houses. One is we have health issues, second one we have the fire hazards, and the third one we have the fear of social disorder. What is this fear of social disorder? Because when we are looking at the time period when this is actually going on, it is going on in around 1920, 1917 to 1920, when the other side in the east, in Russia, we have the Russian revolt going on in a peak stage, where the system has been completely got transformed into a new system. So the people in England, especially in London also, were afraid that workers may also revolt and be rebellious and may demand for something else. So we would like to go for workers mass housing scheme, which stopped the workers turning them into rebellious. So that's how the housing started in Great Britain, or especially in focus towards the city of London. So in London there was no proper housing facilities available, but with the tenements which we have, the tenements were actually temporary houses or the apartments which were given for workers in a very large number, always overcrowded, and it proves that there is poverty in the London existence. Charles Booth, he himself made a survey in 1887. He found out that nearly 1 million people in London do not have houses, and the average life expectancy of the lower middle class people, those who are working in the factories and industries, have come down up to 29 years of age, and most of the people are dying in the working houses or in the lack of the facilities in the hospitality. So it is must, he concluded saying that minimum 4 lakh houses should be the initiative taken by the government to build. And later, when the mass houses were built, the practical problems are this: vast mass one-room houses were built, which proved to be a health hazard, and later another identified problem was a fire hazard, and the larger point was the fear of social order, which was expected during that time. So workers mass housing scheme stopped workers from turning into rebellious mood. Now we shall move on to cleaning London. How did the concept of cleaning London has come? What is the necessity to clean London? As we all know that even in the modern cities, we have huge pollution. So because we have more number of small scale industries established in London, almost the entire London was filled with a lot of pollution, and that's the reason why people are getting lot of health issues. Several attempts have been made not only in London, prior to this in Berlin and the various other places where the similar situations were in existence. So in order to clean London, we need to have a healthy London. So they decided to first of all decongest the localities, to make gap between the localities and the other localities, so that we can have certain amount of gap there. So decongesting the localities was the first step taken. The next major step taken was green the open spaces. Wherever you find the open places, fill them with the trees so that you get some healthy atmosphere from there. Some good amount of fresh air will clean the polluted atmosphere there. And then rent control was another major concern, because of the people getting rents in very too high wages, more number of people are staying at very closed areas. Because of that, pollution is increasing. The aspects like releasing of carbon dioxide into the air, these all aspects have been increasing. That's the major concern. And during the time of World War I, where we have many people coming into Britain and people moving from Britain to other places, so the rapid movement of the people also made the government to restrict the rents during that period, and the demand for cleaning of the London went on to its peak during the time of the World War I, saying that we should have new lungs, otherwise we cannot survive here. So that is the severity of the problem can be understood from this line itself. And then looking at all these issues, the architect Ebenezer has made certain suggestions, like we will go for a garden city. A garden city is a place where it is full of plants and trees, where people can live and people can work. Taking the idea of Ebenezer, Raymond and Barry Parker created some garden cities where there was a single cottage houses. These single cottage houses were spaciously built and covered with the green park and everything. So with this location itself, we can understand like it's like a villas. So it was only for the well paid off employees, not for the other categories of people. Somehow it could not reach to all the other people. It could not satisfy the problem or solve the problem of London. And then people can live and work in the green city. That's what the concept what Ebenezer has brought into view. So looking at the problems and looking at the growing scenario around the world in 1919 to 1939, the Britain initiated the process of constructing housing for workers for 1 million houses. That means nearly 10 lakh houses were promised by the Britain to build houses for their workers, and in that they did not plan to build the apartments like the tenements. If you remember the tenements which are being overcrowded, so they started to promise to give a single family cottage. These single family cottages were not built at one place, they were built at various corners of the city. So this automatically developed the suburb regions. When the suburb regions and the cities have to be linked, the new mass transport systems were brought into existence. The necessity has been initiated with the building up of the new mass houses scheme. So that's how the cleaning of London happened. Later on, this became a widespread movement because people started to get scattered to different corners and greenery was built everywhere. That's how London became from a very polluted city to a pollutionless city. Now as we move on for the discussion of point like how did the transport system got developed in the city of London. As we all were discussing that the housing situation made the Britain to take an initiative to build nearly 10 million houses during this World War period. So once they started to build the houses at the different corners of the city, now the necessity for the transport system has been erupted up. So with the popping up of the necessity of building the public transport system, a new public transport system, because people need to travel from one region to another region. So initially, though there were certain disturbances, certain negative implications saying that this would not be successful, this would be a failure, this is a very dangerous transport system, all these things. In London, the underground railway system was being laid for the first time from the city in and out, where on 10th of Jan 1863, that is from Paddington to Farrington streets, where nearly 10,000 people are being transported during those times, and later on by 1880 it was became the most vibrant transport system by having 40 million people using this system. So it clearly shows for us that initially people were afraid because we have to travel underground. Till that time we were not aware of any such kind of things which are going on. So when we are traveling underground, the experiences were also recorded saying that we went in underground where there is nothing left out, only carbon dioxide coming on, only coal is present there. If something happens there, it would be a life disaster thing. Yes, of course, if something happens under the ground, it was really a very dangerous thing. But the efforts were made in such a way that this has proved to be the best transport system ever since in the history. So once the transport system being successful in London, this has been copied at various other places. So the iron monsters and the unhealthiness because of the road transport or because of the railing of the railway network, when they were laying the railway network, the Bombay and Sons, the book written by Charles Dickens, mentions it very clearly that initially there was a lot of negativity against the underground railway network system. So he wrote a book compiling all the negative implications of that one, of the society, what they felt during that time. So he wrote that the iron monsters had made the city unhealthy, and the unhealthiness has been in prevailing here because of this. And he also highlighted that nearly 900 houses of the poor were being destroyed in order to lay 2 miles of railway network. So that's how initially it was projected, but after it became a huge success. Huge means a very huge success. In 1863 we have 10,000 passengers. In 1870 or in 1880s you have 40 million passengers traveling through this. So it shows very clearly how grand success is this one. So that's how it went on to a very large scale, and later on all the developed cities or the advanced metropolitan cities like New York, Tokyo and Chicago could not resist themselves unless they have kept their own underground railway network transport system available to all the people in those places. So this increase of the transport system connected far off places to very close regions, far off regions in the cities to very close destinations, because till that time man found it very difficult to travel from one region to another region. But this rapid fast transport underground system connected the large lands to very close places. So these all developments initiated a good change not only in the higher rich classes but also in the middle classes and the underprivileged classes. People also, to travel to far off places to provide their daily activities, to fulfill their daily duties, in order to search their job opportunities also. So what was the impact of the growth of transport system on the life, work, life and leisure? How did a man learn to work? How did the lifestyle of the people change? And leisurely, how the game pattern, how did the new aspects, new attitudes, how to pass the time with a happy mood, all these things have come in to the lifestyle of the human beings. In the modern days, we generally find that people are always habituated of their work culture, of their lifestyle, and then their spending of the leisure time. But this pattern has got developed only in the past 200 years. So what happened in the past 200 years? The past 200 years was the growth of the cities in the contemporary world. The present world what we are looking of is the growth of the cities which we have today. And now, as in the initial phase of the lesson, we have the introduction of the lesson given by a person, writer especially from India. In 1880, he wrote a book. The writer name is Durga Charan Rai. Durga Charan Rai writes a book naming like Devnagar Mariti Agaman. Devnagar Mariti Agaman. Devganar Mariti Agaman. This is a Bengali word which means that the God visits earth. This is an illusion story, like how Plato used to write, imagining how he want the earth to be, how he want the Greek city states to be. In the same manner, we have Durga Charan Rai writing with the utopian ideology of, if suppose God visits the earth like Brahma, what would he feel looking at the modern city? That's what he want to bring out in his writing. He want to focus on the latest updates which happened by that time, not till date. By that time means the later part of the 19th century, how the cities got transformed or how the person's life got mixed with the society, how the attitudes got changed. All these things he want to analyze and he want to bring it to our notice. Now let us see what did he want to bring it to our focus of attention. He, in his book of God Visits the Earth, he is taking the god Brahma, the creator. According to the Hindu mythology, there is a significant place for the Lord Brahma. So if Brahma comes to earth, he is accompanied by one of his friends. His name is Varuna, or the rain god. So Brahma is not coming alone. Brahma is coming with one of his close friends, the rain god Varuna. So when Varuna and Brahma are coming, they boarded a train. So you cannot ask me a question like, how can Brahma and Varuna are boarding a train? They will be coming from the heaven, so how can they board a train? This is just an utopian story where you cannot check the facts, like if I want to travel from one place to another place, I need to take a ticket, I need to board into the train, all these things. So these all things are not necessary and mandatory when we are writing a story, that too on an utopian basis. Here, when Brahma the creator and his friend Varuna both are traveling in a train, they were first of all astonished and shocked looking at the large size of a train. A moving house, they called it as a moving house because it's like a house where you can do everything and you can be moving, you can be eating, you can be sitting, you can be sleeping. So somehow that was astonishing for them by that time. And they were also astonished looking at the growth of the factories, industries, and they were also looking at the marvelous metropolis buildings, the museum buildings, the high court buildings, the administrative buildings, then moving on to the houses of the viceroys, and all these things gave a significant picture for them that Kolkata during that period was really a very fast upgrading city, a very well planned city, and it has seen its rapid growth in a very short span, as it was initiated by the Britishers, as it was for the long time run as an administrative capital of the Britishers. So during that period, they also have seen that Kolkata is a place where you have full of opportunities for the people to work. It's a possibility for the people to come here and to earn a livelihood. And they also were very much interested because looking at the availability of the items at very less cost. The writer also puts a point saying that Brahma was so much inspired with the less prices that he want to get down and he also want to purchase a pair of shoes. Then you may get a question like, how did Brahma know about the currency of India? He is coming from somewhere else. That's what I told before. It is an utopian story. It is an imaginary story. It is not compulsory that whatever you get in the story, it should be in the real life. It is a story. So please remember that point. So Brahma was also inspired by the availability of the products at very less cost. And then they were also astonishingly fact that there were no social barriers, there were no caste barriers, there were no religious boundaries for the people. Earlier we used to consider that there were social boundaries for the people, there were religious boundaries which are like watertight compartments where people will never used to cross these boundaries. But in cities, when we get people migrated from various corners to that particular place, there is no possibility of having close links with the same categories of people, let it may be the caste, religion or any other correlational points what they would like to have in the societies. So, it did not give any possibility for the growth of caste system in the cities or growth of religious communities on a larger scale in the cities. It is only the human beings who interacted, leaving about all the distinctions and the biases aside and focusing on their targets of doing their jobs, getting their incomes, feeding their families. Their intention was only to earn something and to feed their families happily, because they migrated from the far off villages or the towns where it was very difficult for them to earn their living. So that's how he want to bring out the point that in Kolkata we have a drastic change when it was compared prior to this movement and after the industrialization process happened. You may get a doubt, so today modernization, in modernization we have lot of history for modernization. We have seen the history of development of the England cities, we have seen the development of various other cities. So then how can we trace it only from 1880s and all? The development may be very fast in the West. It may be growing very soon in the West. The adoption levels of the people in the West may be very fast. But when it comes to India, it started only in the later part of the 19th century, and Kolkata was somehow very far in approaching and getting that advances towards its reach because of the British rule during that time. Kolkata was developed in a very larger scale. Now I am calling it Kolkata, but earlier in your textbooks you may get it named as Calcutta. So Calcutta was far developed during that period. I am not saying today it is developed. It is developed only during that period of time. It was far well developed. Today you may get development well in Bombay, well you get in Chennai, you may get in Hyderabad also. But during that period, the development, when it is compared to the cities like Bombay or Mumbai, then Chennai, then Hyderabad, it was very less. They are in far advanced when compared to this one. And here in this unit, we will try to study and understand how did the industrialization process happen, how was it initiated, what were the initial troubles faced by the people. We shall take two case studies, one in the West, one in our own country, and so that we can understand the exact process and the development stages of industrialization in the West and in India. As we discussed till now, how did the people started to get transformation from a healthy family relations, they got disassociated, the disassociation of the bonds, the institution of the marriage getting failed, all these things. And we also can say that because of the individualism and the industrial growth, that has given a scope for the people to have mass vacation on Sundays. And now moving on to the leisure time practices of people in the developed city like London. What were their leisure practices and what did they used to consume during that period, the leisure and consumption. So the wealthy people or the Britishers used to have a long time, that is the annual London season, where they used to enjoy their break time. It may be nearly for 1 month to 2 months. So it may vary from 30 days to 60 days during the period from December to Jan, because it was a severe cold during that period and it is considered as a Christmas season during there. And now the practices of these people are nothing but what we see in our day-to-day atmosphere around us in the present day cities, were being practiced by them during the later part of the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century. So initially they were not fond of having these kind of leisure practices, but because they are having holidays on Sundays and weekends, so they decided to have a happy time during the weekends. So they were advised to spend their time very happily during the weekends. So the first one what they prefer was the opera theatre, where the classic and the musical shows were conducted. The theatre shows were played at the opera house, where it was a very famous one. Even today we have the opera house playing their classical and the musical things, and today we even have theatre shows displayed from here. We have fantastic actors coming up from these theatre shows. Then we have the allied groups restored to join together with 300 to 400 families together and exchange their views, exchange their ideas by having a gathering at a place, and that place where the wine or the drink will be served, known as pub. So pub has become a place where they can exchange their views and exchange their ideas or exchange their news, whatever is happening from across and in the whole week period, so that they can have a bonding between these 300 to 400 members as a group society during that time. That's how the pub culture got into existence during that period. And later, when the establishment of the museums, initially when museums were established, there was a token ticket amount that has to be paid to get entry into the museum. So the number was very less in 1810s when the museum was started. For an annual year, it was only 15,000 members visiting the place for the whole year. But when this token amount has been lifted off, the number has been tripled for 1,27,643 people, moving from 1824 to 1825 period. And again in 1846, when the statistics were taken, it grew to 8,25,901 people visiting the museum, which was set up in London. And also we have the other practices coming up. The cinema became the most favorite time pass item for the people in London. The cinemas started to be the most entertaining aspect for the people of that time. That continued even today also. We have the most entertaining medium is cinema. And then spend the time by the sea. When the weekends, most of the Britishers are advised to spend their time nearby to the beaches. We have statistics available for us that in 1883, nearly 1 million people have spent their weekends at the Blackpool beach, and in 1939, we have nearly 7 million people spending their time at the Blackpool. So it shows very clearly that the people, once they got accustomed with the city culture, they started to adopt it into their day-to-day lives. They started to change their relations in adjustability with the situations. So now people, when they started to initially to feel loneliness, what we have seen in the upper class women communities, later in order to eliminate this loneliness, they started to come and interact with the people. What we have seen in the allied groups, where 300 to 400 family members are coming together in the pub. Then we have seen the music shows of opera theatre. Then we have discussed about the museum places where you can find a beautiful art piece, architecture, historical collections, arty crafts, manufacturers. All these things started to step into the lives of the people in the cities, because there is a lot of gap in the life of the people, because there was no close intimacy which was there before in the rural areas, but now they have moved to the individualistic attitude, city centered regions, where they had their own consciousness. Self has become more for them, and it has given a scope for the establishment of the other ways of getting entertainment rather than being close to the person whom do you like more. The cinemas have become the most influential medium of communication or a time pass medium, because you can go and sit in the cinema, which is visualizing as well as an audio aid, which plays for you in a very larger extent. So which reveals for us to get very large aspects for us. So all these things will make us to understand how can you understand the facts, or how can you look at visualizing something which cannot happen in real life can be happening in the cinemas. And then spending the time most valuably is spending the time at the sea, where it is considered to be a healthy, and it gives us pleasure for the people by enjoying at the beach time like small children. So 1 million people were spending their valuable time at the weekend times by the beach sides at the Backpole beach in 1883. That number has gone up to 7 million in 1939 at the Backpole beach. So these are some of the leisure practices which are developed during the later part of the 20th century in order to compensate the Sunday time of the people of the London. So their practices are looking at the music, watching the plays at the opera, allied group gathering in the pubs, organizing festive occasions, and then having their own meetings, attending or visiting the museums, and then watching the movies, cinemas, and finally spending their time by the sea. So these all are some of the collections of the leisure time practices and also the consumptions. So now wine started to become a more aspect common in all gatherings of the people, because whenever we have 2-3 people gathering there, as we would like to give tea or coffee in Indian context, there they started to share wine with all the people. So wine has been playing a very crucial role in all the drinks, wines and all, has been part and parcel of the culture of the city attitude. So along with this, we have different music getting up involved, and this got development into various other stages. That's how the time pass or the vast Sunday gap, mass Sunday gap has been finished or spent by the people in London by using all these different leisure time practices to spend their valuable time and consumption. Now we shall see how did the society got changed. As we discussed just now, that the transformation of transport system brought large area of the city into a small village pattern where you can travel from any corner to any corner within no time. So this has brought people closer. After getting people closer, the society got also struck with the transport system. Can you imagine how a society can get struck with the transport system? Yes, the influence of that will fall definitely on a family. So in our families earlier, prior to the transport system got advanced, it was a production unit. When we discussed about the weaving, cultivation and all, the merchant used to go to the families where the houses were there in the countryside. They used to give a contract for the people to work for them. So the family acted as a production unit during that time. All the family members used to work collectively during that period. After working collectively, they used to give the product to the merchant. Later, the family became a political decision making unit. Whenever it is necessary to make any decision, the family members all used to discuss and then take any decision. So it also acted as a political decision making unit. Later, it got transformation. The family got transformation into a new style, a new pattern, where the bonds between the family members, husband and wife, got loosened. The ties, the relations became loosened. They were not as close as they were earlier. Though they live in large houses, but the relation and intimacy became very loose between them. That was not able to bind the marriages further. Marriages started to break down. The institution of marriages were really started to break down in a large number during this period of industrialization growth. And especially the women of the upper class who got breakdown from their marriages and whose children have maids and caretakers to make the work burden reduced for the women also feel very much isolated during this period only, because the family initially was to be the collective work activity, either for production or for political decision or for any work. They all used to sit together and discuss the things and finalize the things. But when it got transformation, when they were able to get their own job opportunities, when they started to move and to get access to different places, they got new relations. The old existing relations and ties of the families started to become loosened, and the marriages started to break down literally, and the women of the upper classes were started to feel largely isolated, though they had many number of workers, maids to take care of their children, to cook, to wash the clothes and everything. So that's how sections of people started to get dissociated with the regular cultural values what we had prior to the industrialization. So men, women and family, the role, Earlier men and women would together become a family, but now because of industrialization they gave a, yes, it is 100% right to have your individualism. That gave a large growth of the individualism attitude, wherein from the rural backdrop we have the collective values of performing the duties. As I mentioned for you earlier, that from the rural, if you look at the family was acting as a production unit, family was acting as a decision making point. But when we have the industrial growth, they started to move on to get individualism. Me, I, self attitude has to be developed here. Then the unequal access to the people of both men and women created lot of confusion and chaos between their relationship. So that's how women and men start to become unequal attitudes here. But the other major thing which changed the attitude was that men started to prejudice the women when the wartime became, prior to the wartime, when the factories were replaced by the machinery, women were forced to move back to their houses, and a strong step was taken by the men to prejudice that women would be restricted to the household only, and any corner of the city you find more number of men searching for work or playing the work activity there. And then there were a movement done for 10-hour movement restricting the time period of working in the factories, where most of the men participated and very few women participated. So that's how women were very late in getting into the political movements also. So the inequality started to sustain back again in this society, where in the London city also, which is considered as a far well advanced city. But because of this industrialization, this has given a chance for the people to get lot of time on Sunday, where there is a gap for them, where the mass time gap is there, and in order to spend this gap time or this large Sunday time, what were their leisure activities that made them to develop because of this individualism or because of the cultural city culture? What happened and what was their leisure time practices of the people, that we shall analyze. Now we shall discuss about the politics in the city. As we were discussing about the development of the city and industrialization process in example of London, we were actually focusing how did the actual development happen, what are the fundamental principles or what are the fundamental stages that the city of London has crossed across. So now moving on our attention towards the political side, how did the people acquire the knowledge of politics, or how did the people come together to achieve something? That's what we are going to highlight in this particular segment here. Now, looking at the issue in 1886, in winter, the London poor has been exposed in a riot. They were being completely exploded because of the starvation, because of the lack of food, bread. They were suffering a lot. Many of the millions of the London poor who got migrated from various corners towards London, as in the previous chapter, we have discussed that London has been a place of attraction towards the people. 1 out of every 9 from England and in Wales would wish and dream to come and stay in London, because though London doesn't have any large factories to give exploded opportunities for them, but the small opportunities, small businesses which have provided opportunities for millions of people made London the place of attraction for the people to come in. But because of the bad weather condition, bad harvesting condition, the people were not able to succeed during that period, that is in 1886, during the winter period, when the winter was in severe condition, where it was in the extreme cold climatic conditions. People out of starvation, out of hunger, could not sustain. They came outside as a rally. So what happened? So the London people who were hungry, nearly 10,000 people did a rally from Deptford to London. So the first time in the history of the city, London, all people, especially the working class people, are traveling or walking on a special demand, requesting the government to do certain things to end up this starvation for them. So in their process of ending up the starvation, or an attempt to make the government to recognize their point of view that they are being struggling, they are being facing hard time, from the bad weather conditions. So they want to raise their voices very clearly. All have come collectively, nearly 10,000 people gathering during that time. 10,000 people would be a very large number. So 10,000 people gathered and they did a rally, who are very dedicated crowd because they are suffering seriously, and it's a realistic one. It's not the showcased political rallies what we see today, which are being paid rallies as most of the cases. But during those times, they were truly genuine workers who were thrown out of their jobs because of the implementation of the technology, because of the lack of opportunities, whatever may be the reason. These people are suffering a lot. So from Deptford to London, they did a rally. Looking at this, alarming to the shopkeepers, because as we discussed in the previous part that most of the city of London is having small merchants who are having their own shops. So all the shops were shut down until the police comes and take the necessary action to stop the rally. So again the same rally has been repeated in 1887, a year later, in which again more number of people gathered and they also did a rally in the similar manner which was being done in 1886. But this time the police, which are failed in the first phase to arrest or to stop the rally, this time they planned ahead and they came with a heavy force and army and they brutally suppressed the rally. So their brutal step has been recognized in the history. It has been marked as the Bloody Sunday of November in 1887, where the situation was completely out of control and out and right in the control of the army, which means that people could not do anything. They were beaten up, they were thrown away into the houses, they were pushed away from the rallies. All these things made them to declare that it is a bloody Sunday. Many of them got hurt. The entire street where they were traveling was filled with blood because the people were beaten up like that, and many people were running here and there. In order to disperse the people, the police started to use various kinds of methods to make the people to get terrorized so that they would not again further come up towards this extent to organize one more rallies. But this inspiration and this suppression brought it a wave back again, because when we suppress something, it comes up in a very large speed back again. So that's how it happened. When this suppression happened, immediately 2 years later, all the workers in all the factories of London went on a strike for 12-day strike, with a large masses doing the rallies across the streets without having a single pickpocket or without troubling any shopkeeper. They were all going in a peaceful manner, went on for 12-day strike, shutting down every business whatever is going on in London. This was the first major strike which was organized in the city of London as well as in the country of Great Britain, which they demanded that the trade unions have to be recognized. If the trade unions are not recognized, obviously the workers would not have any right to fight against the managements or to ask for their rights. Whenever there is a system failure or whenever there is a trouble for them coming up, they would need somebody to support them, because workers are a weak community during that period. So all the workers joined together and they want their own trade union to be recognized in all the industries wherever they have, small or large, in order to protect the interest of the working community people. So that's how the strike made historical significance. And then moving on to the understanding of the city of London, most of the historians describe this one as, yes, we have large population gathered in London because of various opportunities which are coming or which are offered by London. But the same way, the other side of the coin is described as, when a city is most populous, automatically you have a threat like the strikes or like indulging into illegal activities. As we already discussed, many of the people are got involved into the criminal activities. So this criminality, all these things will pop up only when you have large population and lack of opportunities. Yes, city may always provide a chance for you to get a better opportunity. At the same time, there will be a threat always behind the opportunity. So we should be very cautious when we are living in a large city, or the dynamic nature of the city itself is that when we have large population, there are certain good aspects, but at the same time the other side of the coin is that there are certain aspects which we need to be careful. If not, that may turn into the anti-social elements and they start to affect the society. So the politics in city was initially got struck with the severe winter session in 1886, when the London poor exploded of riots came out in order to express their solidarity and sadness because of the situation and request the government to do something. But looking at the growing strength and the huge mass coming together, the shopkeepers all would shut down their shops and requested the police to take the necessary action. But though they failed in 1886, in 1887, when the situation came up again, when the rally was organized, then the police were well prepared. They came up with a huge army and they suppressed the entire revolt, beating the people, hitting the people and destroying the people mercilessly. And that is the reason why it has been termed as a Bloody Sunday of November in 1887. So now after this, many would think that once it was suppressed brutally, automatically the people would not try to attempt these kind of things. But when we suppress something, it comes back to us in a very large manner. That's what we have learned from history. Here, once again it is repeated here. Let us see here. 2 years later, a 12-day strike was organized, where most of the historians were astonished. Though we know that in London, we have 20,000 criminals recognized legally, where we know that these all are criminals, where we know that they indulge in criminal activity. Even though they are there, out of this crowd, none of them have done a pickpocketing or indulging in any other activity, gathered, did a very large strike, requesting or asking or appealing to recognize the unions. The trade unions have to be legalized. Later, the large masses, conclusion of the historians is that city population would always bring a large opportunities. At the same time, we will be possessing a certain amount of threat. That's what we have seen in the example of London as well as in the example of Paris. Now, moving on to the city in the colonial India. As we all know that India has been the colony of the Britishers, popularly known as classical colony. So one of the major cities, or let us move on saying that the first city which developed in India was Bombay. So prior to this, what we have discussed till now, that the city of London, the first well advanced, well developed so-called city, started with the term of London. Now let us move on our attention towards the Indian first city. But prior to this, comparative study between the growth of these cities in the west and in the east. So the city growth was in contrast with each other. In the west, we have a rapid growth. When it compares to the east, the growth was very, very less. It was only in the later part of the 19th century, the cities started to emerge very much in India. Whereas in the west, we have the cities coming up as mushrooms from the early part of the 19th century. Now, when it comes to the population of India, it was only around 11% of them who used to live in cities in India. That means that most of the population in India were restricting themselves to stay in the rural areas or in the semi-rural areas, but not into the urban areas. Most of the people, whomever we term them as they stay in cities, they used to stay in the cities like the presidency cities, the cities which are places where the presidencies used to stay. Because we have in the olden time the Madras presidency, the Bombay presidency, these presidencies used to stay, and from there only one city used to be developed. The place where most of the offices of the government offices, the cities where they have the port facilities, the cities where they have the industries, the cities where they have the homes and offices of the officials, and the army camps, the educational institutions, the hospitals, all these things. Let us apply this to any one of the city, either the Mumbai or Chennai. So let us take the major ports. Yes, in Mumbai we have a major port. In Chennai also we have a port. Warehouses, yes, we have storehouses in Mumbai as well as in Chennai. Homes of the officials, yes. When we have the offices, obviously homes will be there. Army camps, yes, we have army camps in Mumbai or in the Bombay or in Madras or in Chennai. And we also have world famous or the St. Loyola colleges, Stella colleges in Mumbai and in Chennai. During that time they were established. And then we also have the hospitals which were established during that period. We also have many schools which were established by the Britishers. So that's how when we say that a city, a presidency city is a city which was under the presidency during that time, where India has been totally divided into some 6 to 12 presidencies. So these presidencies, cities were very famous, in which we have the port facilities. Very few have this facility. One is Bombay, the other is Madras, while the third one is Kolkata or Calcutta. These three cities are very famous, and these three only will be termed as presidency cities. So as we discussed just now, the characteristics, the cities which have the characteristics are the facilities like major ports, good transport system from the interior to the external places to connect the port areas, then warehouses, the store places, then the homes and offices of the officials. We also have the army camps, then the hospitals, educational institutions. All these things together have given up for the growth of the presidency cities, that is Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. Let us now, in this lesson we shall focus on the development of Bombay. Bombay, the premier city. Bombay is the first city in India where to be termed as a city. The city did not develop so rapidly or so fast as London got developed. The city got its inception only in 1872, wherein 1840s, 1850s, one or two the other industries have been established, but not in a very large scale. 6.45 lakh was the population in 1872, while in 1941 the population went up to 15 lakhs. So this shows that the city slowly started to get attraction from the people. People are being attracted means there is a possibility of opportunity. And as we discussed earlier, in London also the population has been expanded to 4-fold times, from 1 million to 4 million. So that's how a city can be termed. A city is a place where you find opportunity for yourself. You may have a chance to get an opportunity. The possibilities are more in the cities. So Mumbai is the first premier city in India during the presidential rule or the presidential cities. Why do we call these presidential cities or presidency cities? Because these are the presidencies. Britishers divided India into presidency parts. That's how we call them as presidency cities. It's not the presidential rule what we term in the modern day of independent Republic India. It's not that. It is completely different from that time. There, how do we have states today? In the same manner, they have divided British India into different presidencies. That's how we got the presidency cities. So in this, now we shall move on to see how did vertically and horizontally the growth of Mumbai has occurred in detail. As we were progressing towards the understanding of the growth of Bombay, now we shall finalize about how did the prime city, how did Bombay become the prime city of India. As we all know, prime city is something which is a very, very important one. Generally we have India Prime Minister, the most important person in the Indian context, the most powerful person according to the Indian Constitution is the Prime Minister. In the same way, the term prime has some special importance. So the prime city in India, Bombay. How did Bombay become the prime city of India? That is the fundamental question before us. So in order to establish the facts and to know actually what happened to make Bombay to be the most attention grasping center during that time. Actually, Bombay was not part of the British India domain at all. Bombay consists of 7 island group together, and Bombay was initially occupied by Portuguese people. So in the first part of the lesson, we shall now understand that Bombay was not at all occupied prior to this by anybody else. Bombay was occupied by the Portuguese. Portuguese later on, how did Britain establish their headquarters in Bombay? How did Bombay become the prime city in British India if Portuguese are the people who occupied the city first with having establishing their authority? You may generally assume that maybe Britishers and Portuguese people may had a war which resulted in the defeat of the Portuguese, and with that the Britain might have occupied the Bombay. No, the story was different in this case. The story was Britain or the British did not do any war to occupy Bombay, or neither did any provoking things to attack the local kings to occupy that one and later defeating the local kings and occupying the place. It was a gift to the king. Yes, you heard it right. It was a gift to the king because king married the queen. What is the special point in this? King obviously marries a queen. Yes, the point is British King Charles II got married to Portuguese princess. You got the point? British King Charles II got married to Portuguese princess. In return of this marital bond, they have given as a gift the authority and the administrative rules to the Britain. So this marriage has brought the change of authority, shifting from Portuguese control to the British control. So now the ruling authority of Bombay has been got transformed from the Portuguese people to the Britishers. That's how in 1661, without any war, without any aggression, without fighting any battles, Britishers were able to establish their control over the Bombay. After establishing their control, as soon as the news spread to the English East India Company, immediately the English East India Company shifted its centers trading from Surat to West Port of Bombay. So that's how the main focus towards Bombay has come up. And later on, initially Bombay was the place where the cotton which we get from Gujarat has been exported. It has been a major outlet from where we get cotton. Gujarat we get cotton. Surat was a place where initially East India Company used to collect the cotton and export it. After having a wide Arabian Sea opening here in Mumbai or in the Bombay, so as the control has gone to the Britishers, so they would felt might be that it would be a better place to do this facilities and all, and port area was good connectivity, nice large port available for them, good place to establish. So all these things made them to shift from the Surat to the West Port of Bombay. From there they used to do exporting the product initially, but later on, because of the massive facilities available, good connectivity from the port to the interior and from the interior to the port, that made Mumbai or the Bombay to be the main place to export and import the raw products, especially the raw cotton and opium. With this, with the getting up of the opium trade into India, Mumbai became one of the most important administrative centers for the Britishers. As I told you before also, opium was something which is very, very costly, and the money which they got on opium was being used to balance their deficit amounts wherever they are doing trade with the other countries at very loss in amount, or it's like an extra surplus amount what they are getting from India. So with that extra surplus amount what they are getting in India, the focus was in Bombay. So obviously Bombay became the main administrative center for the Britishers, and it became, and we also can travel from Bombay directly to Britain, where we through via this Atlantic Ocean, and all these ways has given a chance for Bombay to establish herself as a prime city. So later on, after getting established as the prime city, Slowly, one after the other, the major industries started to step in, and by the end of the 19th century, it became to be the major industrial center in the entire British Indian territory. So that's the story of Bombay, the introduction of Bombay. Why did Bombay become the premier city? Bombay was actually occupied by Portuguese people. Portuguese did not got defeated in the hands of Britishers, nor they were being attacked by anybody else. In return to the marriage of Portuguese princess with the King of Britain, Charles II, as a marital agreement, a bond, as a gift, it was being given the administrative rights to the Britain people. As soon as the news spread for them, the English East India Company immediately shifted her offices from Surat towards west port of Bombay. That's how the Britishers were able to establish their control in the matter of administration, in the matter of the entire political as well as the geographical authorities were established, which gave a chance for them to groom Bombay. Initially, Bombay was also a normal city where the population was not so high. But after these changes happened, the population went on growing day by day. Because day by day, Bombay is growing. Bombay was first an outlet center for Gujarat's cotton. Later, it was an important export and import place, business place, where raw cotton and opium was brought. Opium is something which was done by the Britishers to get the surplus amount, extra profitable amount, to compensate their losses with the other colonial countries what they were doing trade, especially with China. And later it turned to be the most important administrative center and then a major industrial center. This is a slow rapid growth of Bombay. So let us see how is the life in Bombay, how are the workers in Bombay, what did Bombay do to its workers when London was not able to do much benefits for its workers. What did Bombay do? Let us now discuss about the working conditions. How are the opportunities available for the people? When we look at the work in the city, when it comes to Bombay, Bombay has been declared as a capital of the Bombay Presidency in 1819. After Bombay has been declared as the capital of the Bombay Presidency in 1819, then Bombay became the focus of attention of all the people. Prior to this, Bombay has been a port city. Bombay has been an outlet for the Gujarat cotton to let out. Bombay has been an import city and an export city for the raw cotton and opium. Till the development. After these transactions were going on, the British officials felt that it would be better to have Bombay as a capital of Bombay Presidency. That's the reason why in 1819 Bombay has been declared as the capital of Madras Presidency. This actually came with the defeat of the Maratha people, the Maratha rulers in the Anglo-Maratha War, which was in effect till that time. So once in 1813-1815, the Marathas got defeated gradually. The strength and the hold over the Bombay became weak, and Anglo people, means the English people, were successfully able to establish their control over the entire Bombay region. So later, after this, slowly the many opportunities have come up. Initially, the development was only because of the establishment of the mills. First mill was established in Bombay, that is a cotton mill, in 1854. But in a very less span, from 1854 to 1921, within a span of 70 years, 85 cotton mills were established, which was a very huge number, which we could not even find in London city. So 85 cotton mills accommodating nearly 1,46,000 workers working in that one. In this 1,46,000 workers working in the mills of Bombay are not basically from Bombay. It is only 1/4 of the people who belong to Bombay. The rest of the people all have got migrated from the nearby districts of Bombay. The nearby districts of Bombay, from where the huge population crowd has flux in, was Ratnagiri. The Ratnagiri district has been the major people from where the people have migrated towards Bombay. So that's how the people started to walk in towards Bombay by the ending of the 19th century. And later, let us now see what is the women percentage of work. Women were also accommodating nearly 23% in 1919 to 1926, while this was after the First World War and before the economic crisis and before the Industrial Revolution happened in a larger scale, where machinery has been taken into a large scale in the later part of the 20th century beginning. So the third decade of the 20th century, where the machines have been started to replace most of the work made by men and the human. So in 1930s, the women percentage has come down to less than 10% because the work has been replaced by the machines and men. And later on, these were the working conditions. And not only this, the special significance for Bombay comes after it has been the dominant one in the maritime trade. Any trade in relation to maritime, the first preferred place is Bombay, while railways have also been a connecting point between the north and the south, where railways also have added to bring more migrants into Bombay, as well as at the same time the famines at the Kutch, the Ran of Kutch in the upper part of western India was also given an opportunity, because when there is a severe famine there, the other possible channels where you can sit and look to get some kind of possibility to live and survive is Bombay. So that's how people started to come into Bombay. And not only this, various other factors have motivated the people. Where there is an opportunity, people started to flood in to this one. So this flooding has been a serious issue in 1898, when the epidemic disease plague has spread to many people in Bombay. So the officials have forced the people to go back to their native places because of the spread of the disease, and they were afraid because of the loss of the human population. So nearly 30,000 people are forced to leave Bombay during this 1901 period, when the plague was in its extreme phase. So that's how the work, the scenario, the opportunities of all people were in Bombay. So what about the housing condition? How did the people stay? Because the next major problem what we get is, first you need to get a job. So you start to move in or migrate into the city. So once you get migration from various corners into the city doesn't get expanded. People are coming, the population is increasing. That doesn't mean the city is going to get expanded because population is coming in, dumping in. City doesn't increase its land area horizontally, vertically, or in the length and breadth of the area. So the length and breadth of the area remains the same. The number of people inhabiting the city are increasing now. So what happened for the housing in Bombay? That we shall find out. Now, as I told you that horizontally and vertically, the length and the breadth of the city does not increase with the dumping of the population from across when the migration happens. The same problem occurred in London also. But the situation is completely different when it comes to India, especially Bombay. What happened in the Bombay context? Let us see here. Bombay was overcrowded. London was also overcrowded. In London, every Londoner used to have 155 square yards in 1840s, where it has been an average number of people staying in that land were 8 persons. When it comes to India, especially Bombay, 9.5 square yards was only left out, and even in that also we have 20 people. That's the density of people staying in that particular less land. It shows the severity of the people staying in that particular place. So the population has grown 4-fold times, larger and larger. Now the basic problem is the housing problem. Housing has become a very, very large problem for the people of Bombay after the city has acquired its industrial center brand. So with that, any plans were not there for the development of the Bombay city. So without any plan, the city has started to grow on, houses were being growing on. And even the city was being divided into two parts, where one is a place where the Britishers used to stay, known as a Whites colony, whereas the native Indians used to stay, known as a native colony. The north of the fort was occupied by the Britishers, whereas the south obviously has been occupied by the cantonments where the native Indians used to stay. And this also shows for us that during this time we had a serious discrimination of racialism. Racial pattern is not only found in the Bombay presidency but also in the rest of the two presidencies of Kolkata and Chennai, or like Madras presidency. Now moving on to understand what happened after this. As we have discussed the population coming up, turning like this, what is the further development that happened? So with the rapid growth, as I told you, length and breadth would not increase. The house has become scarce and water supply has become a serious concern by 1850s. Is it the case with all the Indians? No. The rich, Parsis, businessmen, Muslims used to live in a spacious bungalows and the sprawlings. The spacious bungalows and the sprawlings symbolize their wealth and filthy rich nature, where their houses are very spacious. The spacious bungalows and the sprawlings were the houses of the Indians who were belonging to the communities like Parsis and Muslims. But contrast to this, 70% of the Bombay used to stay at the chawls. These chawls are built as a multi-storied buildings where they don't have proper accommodation facilities. They even don't have private toilets for every single room story. And 90% of the people, as most of the people are mill workers, would prefer to stay nearby to the mill region so that they can walk and approach to their workplace. So that is the reason why they have established a mill village named Girijan Gaon. This Girijan Gaon is just 15 minutes away from the most famous mills in Mumbai, and this is the story of the chawls where multi-storied buildings were built in 1860s. Is just like a replica of the tenements which we have discussed in London, and most of the tenements are owned by the people, private merchants and the private business people, where they used to give rent for more number of people, and because of the cost of rent, heavy rents, the families were forced to stay in a single roomed houses, where the single room stalls, because they can't afford to stay in a very large place. In 1901, when the statistics were taken, nearly 80% of the families were staying in these chawls of Bombay. And the astonishing fact is that daily morning we find, with the scarcity of water, one woman fighting with the other woman in the daily morning scene in Bombay chawls. But when they were fighting, even though they were fighting for water, the observers have remarked that most of the houses were kept very clean. Though there was a huge scarcity of water, the houses were maintained well cleaned. That's the astonishing fact of Bombay chawls. So that's how the housing was in the initial stages. Bombay was overcrowded when compared to London. In London you have sufficient place for the people. It doesn't mean that in India, in Bombay, we don't have sufficient place for the rich people. Yes, we have spacious bungalows and the sprawlings for them, but most of the people, nearly 70 to 90% of the people, those who are working for the mills in Bombay, used to stay in the chawls or the multi-storied buildings, where they even have to shut down their doors continuously because of the buffaloes, because of the gutters. All these things made them to be shabby, dusty places. And even then, even in the hot, humid summer, they have to close their windows and stay inside. These all are the difficulties which are faced by the common people during this period because of the lack of the proper houses, and in order to could not be able to afford the heavy rents which were stationed during that period. So these all possibilities made most of the people to stay nearby in the villages known as mill villages or Girijan Gaon, which is a nearby walkable distance for 15 minutes from all by established mills, so that they do not find any difficulty in going to their mills and coming from their mills. As in the progress of discussions about the homes and the neighborhood, how did the household problems got solved in Bombay? So with the scarcity of the homes in Bombay, they became very small to the people, and we all know that most number of people, as 80% of the families are living in the chawls of Bombay, which are very small houses literally. So automatically the neighboring, the streets all were used for various works. So the streets were used for various activities. Those activities can be branded like this, like for cooking the items or cooking their food, everything, day-to-day activities, washing the clothes, after washing the clothes, night time to sleep, and then to have liquor business, to do liquor, to consume liquor. And when there is any empty spot that has been spotted out in the gap of these chawls, they used to occupy that one known as akaharas. This occupation was also very high during that time by putting a small shop or putting a small any outlet where they can sell anything. As the time passed on, people started to get habituated of staying on the streets. That's what one of the famous writers, Parvati Bai Bore, remarked rightly, that she always used to see some kind of activity that is going on between the gaps of the chawls. There is a time where the leisure activities were also conducted in the gaps of the streets, where in the gaps, the chawls where the magicians used to come to perform their magics, the monkeys used to come, the monkey man used to come and put his monkey for display for the people. And it is also very scary for her to watch the Nandi bulls. The bulls, which are very strongly built, were brought there. And also Kadak Lakshmi. The Kadak Lakshmi is an act which was performed by a person standing off of his shirt and beating himself in order to survive him. So in order to earn his livelihood, he used to beat his body mercilessly so that people would donate some amount. So like that, there were various other activities that had been done on the streets and the neighborhoods of the chawls. So the chawls were the places where the people used to gather to discuss anything. It was not only for the time pass activities, it was not only for the leisure time, it was for the discussion of important aspects also. The important aspects like exchange of the news, any activity, any news, any incident which happened can be reported in the streets of the chawls. Then the job opportunities, where if anyone finds that any suitable opportunity for any of their people, they would immediately approach them. And the riots, if there are any riots going on, they would immediately inform to the people, because all are staying in the same chawl and most of the people are poor people. They always used to be most of the time united on any of the issues. And if you look at the caste system, as we already discussed in the previous part, that we have the racial discrimination in India during that time, in all the presidencies during the British India rule. At the same time, we have the caste and the family heads taking over the chawls rule, because for having a leadership for all the members in the chawls, we used to have one elderly person who used to be like a village headman who acts as head of the entire chawls. And most of the times, as we discussed in the previous time, the jobber, the job opportunity taker, provider in the industries, that particular person, jobber, used to be the village head person for most of the times, and he used to settle the disputes. As the time passes on, he used to settle the disputes, and the major disputes are between them in his consumption of the food, how the food production happens, what are the legal disputes of the rice and all these things, or any informal credits taken. And he also brings the information on the political developments which are happening during that time, or what he knew about something, he used to come and announce in the areas. But the astonishing fact is that the depressed classes were kept away from the chawls. Britishers kept away the native Indians kept away the lower caste people or the depressed classes, and most of the chawls were denied for the people, or chawls were denied for the depressed classes. Most of the times they used to stay on the streets or on the side of a tree, bamboo tree and all these trees, wherever there is a possibility for them, because nobody is ready to give any kind of houses for them to stay. The chawls were exemptly, openly they used to say that we were not ready to give houses for you people. And then after they are out of the chawls, so there is no other chance by laying on the streets or on the far off places of the city. So now let us first recall what happened, then I will let you know what happened for the planning of the development of Bombay city. So most of the houses were very small. So because of the size of the houses, the people were forced to perform their activities in and out of the houses. So in the streets and in the neighborhood of the houses. So activities which are performed by the people in the streets and the neighborhood places are cooking, washing, sleeping, liquor, playing games, looking at the leisure time passes like watching the magician shows, monkey shows, or people coming with the bulls, or people coming with the Kathak Lakshmi activities, performing their own activities as a medium of leisure for the people who stay in the chawls, as a medium of income for the people by coming from the outside. And it also acted as a place where exchange of the news, jobs, as well as the riots, any information from the people would be discussed in the chawls. Not only this, the caste system and the families were always headed by a elderly person known acting like in a village. How do we have village person heading a village headman? In the same way, we have a caste groups heading their own caste members. And then the most of the times the person was a jobber. A jobber is a person who is a senior most employee in any of the factories or the industries, whose word would be the final authority to take the members into the jobs, the workers into the work. That is the reason why jobbers are given special importance and privileges in the society, and he has been taken as the family head person or the main person of the chawl of the basti. So once he takes these charges, he tries to settle the disputes in regarding to the allocation of the food, crop or any other activities, or any kind of informal credits exchanged between two members which resulted in a dispute. Then he would enter in and try to solve the dispute. And coming to the political news, the news jobber would have a more accessibility to the developments which are happening in the political scenario. So he would brief the people on what are the political developments that are on his knowledge towards the development of the city or their own bastis. Moving on to the other astonishing fact was the discrimination point of view was very high during the British India, and that can also be felt in Mumbai, where the depressed classes were not at all allowed to stay in the chawls. They were completely out of the chawls. But now moving on to the interesting fact of London got the idea of town planning with the fear of mass revolt by the people, especially the working community. But in Bombay, the scene was completely different. It was not the fear of the workers which made Bombay to plan its city. It was the fear of plague, the disease, the epidemic, which brought the idea of people of Bombay to plan strictly in order to save themselves from the dangerous disease, that is plague. So the Bombay Improvement Trust was established in 1898. This trust has been in its process to build houses for the workers. But in a promise of building the houses, they have dispersed nearly 64,000 families from their houses, and they were only able to reschedule the houses for 14,000 people, which has again resulted in a very, very dangerous disaster for the poor people to find their houses. At the same time, the rents were being stabilized by the rent laws in 1918. When the rent laws were being stabilized, that has shooted up a new problem, because most of the rich merchants and the private Charles owners took away their properties from the market for giving rent, because as the rent amount has been lowered down. Again this gave a problem for the housing activity in the Bombay. So this process of housing activity has been a continuous and serious problem for the Bombay people whole along their journey. So it is rightly observed by the historians that when any city is developing, that automatically leads to the problem of housing and then to the supply of water. So but Bombay got its development only by reclamation. What is this reclamation? How did Bombay got its success or improvement because of this reclamation policy? Let us find it now. So now land reclamation bill. I think for the first time we are hearing the land reclamation bill or land reclamation bill. The land reclamation bill is nothing but occupying the empty lands which were once occupied by the sea or the marshy tract regions are being rebought back into the existing land levels. So how this has been possible in Bombay? That's what we are going to discuss now, the land reclamation in Bombay. The land reclamation in Bombay has been a very drastic step which has been required during that time. Who was the father or the main person who initiated this process? The person who initiated this process was William Horby in 1784. William Horby in 1784, the then governor, initiated the process of building the Great Sea Wall. So if you build a great sea wall which is stopping the sea from further coming inside into the land region. So when a sea wall has been built, that would automatically result in the stop of the water, and the land which has been left out, which was initially been occupied by the sea, would become an empty land which will be giving extra scope to encroach into that land by the people. So as the requirement of the land increased, the British officials of during that time decided to build a great sea wall which is on demand. So now William Horby planned to build a great sea wall. So the great sea wall was built under the process to claim the lost land to the sea. Simple. We can divide the word re, do it something again, claim, get it back, action. So reclamation, reclaim, getting back the action of the land which has been initially was a land, but initially it was good. Later when the sea expanded, it came to this part and brought this land also under the influence of the sea. Now we are restricting the influence of the sea by building a great sea wall. That's what the process of reclamation. This reclamation has proved a very, very positive sign towards the growth of Bombay, because the additional commercial place, it has required place because it is growing day to day basis. Private as well as the government offices, private industries all need place. So the several plans have been planned in order to get the excess land or the reclamation land from Bombay. This reclamation land is highly required because of the necessity and the growth of the demand for land. So finally, even the private owners are ready to risk their money in order to get this land inbuilt, because they need land and they need to do their business. In most of the cases, nearly all the factories has been shut down because of the lack of land and the proper facilities are not being provided. So finally, the back bay which has been built has added for Mumbai or the Bombay 22 square miles of land, which was a very huge land added, and this land has been profitably or successfully completed from 1914 to 1918 during the period of World War I in Bombay. The Bombay Port Trust has successfully completed this one. After they completed this one, they have established the 22-acre land into a Ballard Estate. The Ballard Estate is a place where today we have the Marine Drive of Bombay, which is very, very famous. So that's how the Bombay got its land expanded by having land reclamation walls. So this is how some cities grow, by adding the lands of the nearby suburban regions. But here Bombay, it got its own land back by pushing aside the sea. Is it really possible to push aside a sea? No. We are just stopping the flow of the water by building a great wall so that this land can be positively used for human inhabitation. That's what happened here in the land reclamation in Bombay. Land reclamation in Bombay was started by William Harvey in 1784. This man was a governor during that period of the Bombay presidency who initiated the process to build a great sea wall. His intention was to start the process of reclamation. And what is the purpose for him to go towards the ideology of building a wall there? His ideology in building a wall was he needs land for the government purpose and also for the private companies. So, the private company people are ready to risk their financial amounts to get the land back or to find some land in Bombay to do their businesses. So, as situations are becoming worse, the private companies are daily feeling very bad to circulate the problem of land acquisition. So, that's how the need has triggered to build a great wall, that is the Back Bay in 1864, which was adding 22 square miles to Bombay geographical area. Later on, in 1914 to 1918, Bombay Port Trust has made it 22-acre Ballard Estate, which is now famous as the Marine Drive of Bombay. That's how the land reclamation in Bombay has been a proved positive advantage for the growth of Bombay, not only in the geographical aspect but also industrially, politically, and also to get financial resources dumped in towards Bombay, which obviously gave chance for the opportunities to grow much larger and larger. Mumbai is a land of dreams. How did Bombay get its city of dreams? Though we have discussed that Mumbai has been a place where it has been overcrowded, there are no proper housing facilities available. There is a problem for drinking water also, where daily morning we see people fighting with each other. So these all remarks of Mumbai has been thrown away aside when it comes to the establishment of Bombay, the city of dreams. The world of cinema and culture has entered into Bombay. That happened, many of the people call it as Mayapuri, the place where all the dreams come true, the city of dreams. Bombay is also known as the mixture or a blend of star success and ultimate reality of poor slums. It is star bungalows and slums. It is a blend of slums and star bungalows. So how did Bombay turn into such a successful film-making city? Let us discover that. Let us see here. The first film was depicting that India has always had problems, especially Bombay had always problems. In 1956, and the movie from CID, where the hero's buddy song is like this: आए दिल ये है कि मुश्किल है जीना यहाँ, ज़रा हटके ज़रा बचा के, ये है मुंबई मेरी जान. It is like आए दिल है मेरा मुश्किल है जीना यहाँ, means like it is very difficult to live here practically. Zara hatke, zara bachke, to move aside, to safeguard yourself. Ye hai Bombay meri jaan. So safeguard yourself, my heart. That is a line which is saying that there are practical difficulties in Bombay in order to achieve their day-to-day works and settlements. And in the other movie like Guest House in 1959, it also says that a song saying the hearts of the people of Mumbai are small, while the roads and streets are very wide. The bungalows are very big. That's how the movies have depicted the picture of Bombay in the initial years for the development of the film industry. Now moving on to the actual development of the film industry. The first film was made in 1896 by Harishchandra Sakharam Bhatwadekar. Harishchandra Sakaram Bhatwadekar conducted a wrestling match, who shooted actually a movie on a wrestling match at the Bombay Hanging Gardens. So after shooting this movie in 1896, it became a very famous spot for the movies. Later, Dada Saheb Phalke made the first attempt to picturize a movie named as Raja Harishchandra. This was the first official movie made in Bombay and released in the Indian language in the year 1913. So from then, the movies have kicked off their way or started off on a great way ahead. In 1925, Bombay became the famous film capital of India. By 1925, it was very clear that the entire filmmaking industry started to develop in Mumbai. 50 films in 1947 proved that it has been a large growing industry, because the budget which has been spent on 50 films was rupees 756 million rupees. So this amount is not a small amount. It is not in competition with any industry, because it has gone a far ahead than all the other industries. And in 1987, this film industry is able to accommodate nearly 5,20,000 people. So the people started to get their jobs, started to understand the filmmaking industry. People started to migrate from north, east and the south. From Madras, we have many people coming towards the film industry in Bombay. We have many people coming from east, Kolkata, towards Bombay. We have many people from Lahore, the present day Pakistan, also coming from Bombay in association with the Hindi movie making industry. The famous people are Ismant Chughai, was also part of the Hindi movie making association, and Saadat Hasan. These two are coming from Lahore region, were also part of the Hindi movie making group or Bombay cinema. So the Bombay cinema was actually the city of dreams. What we could have like a brief recap of what happened actually. It is also known as the Mayapuri, the city where all your dreams come true, because of the establishment of the world of the cinema and culture. Now, in 1956, one of the movie songs of the movie CID, hero sings for himself, saying to his heart and soul that "Aay ye dil hai, mushkil hai jeena yahan, zara hatke zara bachke, ye hai Bombay meri jaan." To safeguard yourself, it is very difficult to live in Bombay. That's what the meaning of these lines meant for us. And in another movie like Guest House in 1959, this also showed that there are practical difficulties in Bombay to find a house to stay there or to find any job there. And moving on to the development of the actual industry of the movies. First movie was been picturized by Harishchandra Sakaram Bhatwadekar in 1896. He shot a movie on wrestling match, which actually turned on picturizing on Bombay High Gardens. Later on, Dada Saheb Phalke made the first attempt to picturize a movie completely in Hindi base, that is Raja Harishchandra in 1913, which started off a great way of the establishment of the Indian film making industry at Bombay. With this, in 1925, the film making industry was being established at Bombay and recognizing Bombay as the capital of film sector. So film capital is Bombay from then. From then onwards, Bombay has never looked back in a category of films. So in 1947, by the time we got independence, the budget which has been spent on making the movies was nearly 756 million, which is a very far ahead than all private sector industries which are in existence during that time. And in 1987, it is able to accommodate nearly 5,20,000 people by providing some opportunities for them. So Ismat Chaugan and Saadat Hasan, who came from the various parts of India, also symbolizing the national integration, was also the special characteristic of Indian cinema. So Bombay has turned to be the city of dreams. Whoever would like to wish to act in movies, to exhibit their skills of dancing, acting or any other skills, they would move on to Bombay. So Bombay is not only the place where you find difficulties to find a house. It is the true representation of the chawls of bungalows, slum areas. At the same time, in Bombay, we have the star bungalows, so Bombay is rightly remarked as a blend of both high privileges and low amenities, high standards, low atrocities. So high standard of star bungalows, low slum areas. So Bombay is a distinct city. In any corner of the world, you don't find a city. Now, cities and the development and the impact of the cities on the environment. As we all know that when we talk about a city, we are literally talking about the development of the industries and the factories. So when an industry or a factory is established, that would automatically pressurize or at the cost of the ecology. So that's what the main focus, today's theme of understanding city and the effect on the environment. So at the cost of the cities are established at the cost of ecology. The environment would be completely being affected diversely in all aspects. Let it be in the air pollution, let it be in the water pollution, let it be in the land getting contaminated with the different kind of chemicals. So all these things get affected with the upgradation of a rural area into an urban area, that is literally into a city. A city may be a place where you get a number of opportunities, but at the same time it is at the cost of ecology, the imbalance which is created in the nature. Naturally we have certain special effects, but that all will be destroyed with the influence of the development so-called cities. Many factories would be established which would be resulting in the waste, more in the waste, dust, then pollutions, all kinds of pollutions, air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution. Noise has been a serious concern for the many people in the cities. So many waste particles you find in the city because of the development. Most of the land gets polluted, water gets polluted, and air also gets polluted. Noise has been a serious concern because of the establishment of many machines. And if you take an example in Manchester, Bradford and Leeds, where the coal has been used in England in the houses as well as in the factories, has brought a serious health hazards for the people and health problems for them there. And this hundreds of the chimneys used to spew the smoke into the air, believing that most of the atmosphere was in dark greyish color. Many of the people used to make jokes that yes, many of the people in England were born and brought up believing that the vegetation always appears in grey color, because the smoke which falls down on the green vegetation turns them into grey. Then many people started to raise their voice, questioning the imbalances which are coming in the nature, and started to put their voices on a firm note. So initially they thought this would be right to legislate the issue in the assembly hall so that we can bring a new nuisance bill. This nuisance bill can stop the issue, but the industrialists and the steam machine owners were completely against this view, as they were a little bit influential. Money and wealth was been their main concern. They also were able to convince the officials of the government, saying that the technological advancements would definitely add for them and reduce the so-called smoke and all the effects and reduce the harm for the nature. So that's how the initial process were being turned off. So even after the technology has been added up, the smoke abatement has been made seriously from 1847 to 1853, banning the smoke in a large scale exhibit. So the Smoke Abatement Act came into force in 1847 to 1853. And also when we move on to Indian land, Kolkata was the first place which created history. Kolkata, though being a second prime city in India, but the first city to legalize the smoke nuisance legislation. That's how it has got its special significance here. So when initially Kolkata was also having many industries and mills which were using their smoke and this coal were burning and making the entire city to become coal and dusty. So people were thinking of to file a complaint, bring it to the notice so that we can stop the coal exhibit from the factories. A new problem came when in the railway line in 1855 was brought into existence that has brought coal from Raiganj, which is bringing extraordinary smoke into the air. That's how the new problem has arisen in 1855. But in 1863, Kolkata people were able to successfully bring the smoke nuisance bill legislation, which was actually a replica of Smoke Abatement Act of 1847 and 1853. So that's how the city which first brought the bill in relevance to the western terms was Kolkata. In 1920, the rice mills got a new problem for us in India. The rice mills started to, the rice mills which are established in Toliganj, started to burn the rice with their husk to make the husk to burn. Instead of making it in coal, they started to use the rice husk. So this resulted in a dropping of the entire dust like a rain shadow and raining the entire dust in all the houses, factories, city roads, everywhere it has been covering the entire dust like that. So somehow in Bengal they were able to reduce the effect but not in a larger scale. So as a common scenario in all the cities which are growing in the later part of the 19th century has been witnessing that there is an imbalance which is created by the development of the city on the nature, which would automatically result in the pollution, in the decay of the environment. That's what we have seen in the case of England or in the case of Kolkata, or it may be in the case of Bombay. The Smoke Abatement Act in 1847 and 1853 and the replica of that was made by Kolkata, which initially was the first city to bring such a legislation. So the long history of pollution was being found in Kolkata also. So but in order to stop the pollution, they were trying to get some efforts. In the meanwhile, the railway line proposal in 1855 has brought a serious threat for the pollution again, because it has been smoking up continuously by the railway engine, but the coal which was brought from the Raiganj. Then in 1863, Kolkata successfully brought the smoke nuisance legislation. Finally, in 1920, one more problem has come up, that is the rice mills of Toliganj started to burn their rice husk, which started to drill like a rain and fall on the entire household, fields, roads, everywhere, which started to affect their health on the day-to-day basis. That's how pollution has been a common scenario in all the cities, whether it is in the lower part of the development or in the higher edge of the development. Now, in order to conclude, cities are the places where you find huge opportunities for you, and also those who would love to have freedom, that is a place where the cities have come. Though it is not neglected that we have many problems in the cities like the pollution, the smoke, whatever it may be, but it has given a chance for many of the people, not many of the people, millions of the people, to make their dreams to come true. And these millions of people were facing all these problems but turned their dream lands, the cities, into their homes. That's how the cities are a symbol of freedom and opportunities.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.